sustainability. Well, certainly, the one sure method of remaining viable financially is to be relevant. Old models pass away, and they should pass away. New models continually have to be evolved. New ways of approaching service in education, in the public sector, how government is run, has to be relevant. And I have this slide and one more slide I want to just mention to you, because Pastor Fletcher asked me to show the two that I hadn't gotten to. But certainly sustainability is also part and parcel to the intersection of these three sectors. Those organizations of higher education that wish to remain relevant and financially viable in the future are going to have to figure out ways in which they have interrelationships with the public sector, government, the private sector, business, and the citizen sector, community. Organizations that live only, educational institutions that live only within their world of the public sector will eventually become unsustainable in terms of being able to continue to operate. We live in a very different world in 2013 than we did in 1990 or 2000. We have much more of a need to become collaborative, again, my theme of the week. And in order to do that, we need to embrace all three sectors of any economy. This same model is true for any area of the world. It doesn't matter if we're in Jamaica, US, or Germany. There are always three sectors of the economy: the public sector, the private sector, and the citizen sector. We have to figure out a way in higher education to create this new emergent phenomena termed the fourth sector. That's the conflation of those three. So relevance and maintaining, as Professor Morris just indicated, a business-like approach. I don't view or give ground to educational facilities or even the NGO sector just because they're educational facilities in terms of being efficient, effective, and poignant to the students that they serve. This university, all universities, all colleges, all schools must be operated in a business-like way. It's not to say that the mission is to be a business or a profit center. The mission is always to educate, but that delivery of the mission must be in a business-like way. I'll show you just one more quick slide, and this speaks to what we call the three spheres of sustainability, and we can certainly apply this to education. This speaks to community or societal relevance and sustainability, where economic and viability, economic development drives the functions of social development and sustainability. And you'll notice education, higher education, public education fits within that realm of social sustainability. But without an economic engine, you won't get to social sustainability. And without social sustainability, a society never will reach discussions concerning the environment. Case in point is Haiti. You fly over the island. On the right is the Dominican Republic. If you look down on a plane, lush green. If you look to the left, all dark earth brown. And that has everything to do with one country recognizing that they needed an economic base to support a strong educational and social system, and therefore they began thinking about the need to contain and control the environment. And time and again, I see this in every country. If you're not yet dealing with economic development concerns, we'll never get to a full embracing of, in a sustainable way, education or healthcare. And without that, we never quite reach addressing our environmental concerns. And so I would humbly suggest that being relevant in higher education, responding to the needs of business community, the public community, and students themselves is critical. The notion of acting in a business-like way is endemic. You have to. I was once or often told, oh, you're doing God's work. And I hope that's true. But I also say to people, God gave me 2 hands, 2 strong arms, and a mind. There's a favorite expression of mine in Africa, and they say, when you pray, pray with your feet. Implying, pray, yes, it's good, it's important, but act. So those are the notions of sustainability from my perspective. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to go ahead of you, sir. You notice there's one female on the panel. I don't know how that could happen. So I'm the correction on the panel. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for having me. And certainly I have been getting much food for thought so far. Just to add my 2 pence worth, there are a couple of things that I'd like to say, just up front to get them out of the way. One, in terms of financial sustainability and seeing the topic, the first thing that came to me is that education is probably the most serious investment that an individual and a country will ever make, no matter how much property and whatever you have. That's the first thing. The second thing that came to me is that resources will always be scarce. So it's not a matter of how much you have, it's the prudent management of the resources, because demand will obviously constantly exceed supply. So in terms of this investment, how do you use the resources that you have very well? I want to share with you just a couple things from a paper that I did, which I think will help the discussion. And one is, in terms of sustainability, one of the things, certainly from the macro level, that needs to happen from those who have the resources to allocate is how the education system is viewed. Because one of the problems with the education system, it's common, recurring, is the competition among the subsectors. So you have an education sector, but there's competition among the subsectors rather than collaboration and cooperation. It tends to, you hear the discussions, politicians, things are said, re-said from platforms and so on. This sector is more important than that sector, and the money should be put there, and the money should be put there. And when they say the money should be put here or there, it is suggested it must be taken from here and put there. I am suggesting that that view is not the best one, especially when you have scarce resource allocation, which I've said will always be the situation. There has to be some amount of collaboration, and I base that view on the ILO and Dr. Morris, or he was promoted, and I'll sustain the promotion. Professor Morris alluded to it earlier about the ILO mantra of lifelong learning, and they term it, they call it a learning chain. And the chain gives you the image of linkages. So there are number, and you know, a chain is as strong as its weakest link. Our own Rex Nettleford gave this view, and he supported the call for an articulated educational system that can take us people in the region from the cradle to the grave, affording different points of entry and re-entry, and with undiminished capacities for coping with the vicissitudes of human existence. I'm sure it has been spoken of the volatility of the current global environment, which impacts individuals, no matter how skilled, educated you are. Yesterday, we see how many people lost their jobs in Jamaica. It has nothing to do with how qualified or skilled they are. That's just the global paradigm that we are working with. What do they do when they wake up this morning? What next? He warned against government policy which ties education and training narrowly to one specific job as being short-sighted and counterproductive in the medium and long term. It's meaningful educational preparation to be able to think your way through changed or changing circumstances within a given skill area. So it comes back to what I'm saying, lifelong learning. The paper that I wrote was about an education train, which starts from pre-primary, goes through to primary, secondary, and here, now this is where what Dr. Morris said is important, because he spoke about the value of TVET, which emphasizes skill development. There's still the notion that when you leave the secondary level, those who have blossomed and flourished will move into the tertiary sector, and then the ones who have not made it will go and get some skill or something, go and learn a skill. Well, and we're in a very competitive global environment, and if you use the benchmark of Germany, for example, and they have been doing this for probably centuries, and they have something that they know, it's now called dual qualification system, where students leaving the tertiary level get a skill first. So you will have a lawyer who is a plumber and a doctor who is an electrician, so they do their own work. And one of the things we must always remember about having skills, practical skills, is you save money. I challenge any one of you to bake a Christmas cake better than I can bake it. So I don't have to buy expensive Christmas cakes. So you can break down a skill as basic as that. But coming, and also I have to say, using the German example, education and citizenship go hand in hand. The person who developed their system spoke about developing citizens, people who are of value to a nation and to themselves, because when you are educated, skilled, and then you can stay, you can go to another country, send back money and all of that. But saying all that to say, one, education, the system, and when you talk about investment and financial sustainability, you have to look at a total educational system which includes the component that Morris spoke about of after you go through the secondary, or probably it should be entrenched at that level and probably earlier, of the type of education that we have to be able to deal with the changing circumstances. We heard earlier about music. I'll tell you, I did some benchmarking for the university with Princeton University, Princeton, a couple of years ago, and the dean of the faculty or the School of Engineering at Princeton mandated that all students coming into that school must do a liberal arts. So you have to do music or drama or something as part of the program in the School of Engineering. And the reason is, and it is in their yearbook, he said he wants more rounded students. So the type of investment that an individual and a country makes in education, the allocation of resources, which will always be scarce, I think comes back to how we view education, what we are doing with this investment at that level, and that is where we really need to pay attention to our philosophy of education. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. All right. Now, I let Jennifer go first, mainly because I was outside and one of my friends brought me a drink. I want to make sure the drink goes down before I talk to you. And the other reason, which is Jennifer did really well, is we're going back to education. And that's what I want to focus on in my presentation. And I don't know if you've seen those posters or not, because 4 of them are mine, so please look at them. When I first came here about 5 years ago, I did a research on how teachers teach in Jamaica. It's amazing that I surveyed the teachers in 22 schools and the students, 100 teachers, over 200 teachers, and over 2,000 kids. And they all say that teachers talk too much, all right? And I'm sure you agree with me, Jamaican teachers talk a lot, all right? So because of that, when I came, I did math education. I make sure that my teachers, when they go into schools, they use activities. So because kids, kids, if you have kids, grade 7, 8, their attention span is 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, they'll start yakking, and the class cannot go on. All right? So you have to use activities, or group work. I just went to 2 schools this morning where my students are practice teaching, and it's wonderful. Kids are measuring each other's arm span and their height, because the arm span is supposed to be equal to the height. All right? And then they draw graphs. All right? The other class, they did some survey and they did some pie charts. Okay? That's very important, that the kids were occupied. These are grade 7 kids. Well, the next door is so noisy. All right? They're not my students, but all right? So the second point the second paper is Yasmin and I. We work on that. Yasmin works now for the Ministry of Education. It's on equity. Is the system fair that we ask? We actually, someone said we don't, but we stream schools. And we also stream the students in each school. So 9A is better than 9B, 7A is better than 7B. And that's an issue. I mean, is that equity? All right? Are we why some schools do much better than other schools? All right? The third one is on technical education, TVET, that Dr. Morris talked about. I believe that's the answer, I'm sure he said that, to our education system. Jamaican kids are very good with their hands, and they should be trained in TVET. And we did it, if you look at the results, we went to 4 schools, Dr. Hutton and I, 4 schools in Jamaica. We look at that program, we interview the teachers, the students, and so on. They don't have any resources. How can you teach electricity from the book? Student cannot learn electricity or electronics from the textbook. And they still use technology. They were given some machines from Germany or Japan about 20 years ago, and they were still using those. I mean, that's not possible. All right? Now everything is high tech. And I also did some research in China, Taiwan. I mean, China is the best example. They have resources. They spend money on their schools. They want to train the students in TVET. All right? The other question about TVET is equity, because we, as middle-class parents, we want our kids to go to university. We don't want to see them working in agriculture or plumbing or anything like that. We do not want to see them working with their hands. But unfortunately, I mean, that's the problem, not just in Jamaica. In China, the same. All right? In Canada, the same. As middle-class parents, we want our kids to get a degree. And today's paper said, the big graduation today in the science and education, they said 25% of them will get jobs, if you're lucky. All right? What do the other three-quarters of the students do? All right? So that to me is one of the answers, TVET. All right? And the last thing that we did is the whole school violence thing. I'm sure you know that schools are getting worse. All right? So we did a survey of the teachers, the students, and the results are there. All right? And the other thing about technology is that cyber violence, using the cell phone, kids are using the cell phone to, downgrade each other. That's a big thing now in the traditional schools, or especially the girls' schools. That's a big problem. All right? All right? So I please, if you have time, please look at those, because we spend a lot of time on those papers, okay? And we talk about those in international conferences in America, in China, and so on. Okay? So if you have time, please look at those. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, presenters. I think we kept fairly close to our 3 to 5 minutes. We're going to the question and answer section now, but just to raise with our presenters, I think when we look at the title, Changing the Landscape of Education Within Under-Resourced Urban Schools, we look at maybe 4 schools: Selassie, St. Anne's High, Trenchtown, Charlie Smith. I know about, I think St. Anne's High, where maybe 10 years ago they had 1,700 students. I think they have no more than 200 or 300 now. The last time I passed by Selassie, they had classroom to accommodate whatever you want. So if you want to have a dance, you could have it there. Empty space. They were really, I call those spaces dead spaces. This is about sustainability. This is about how do you sustain education? How do you sustain the facilities when the activities, social activities, seem to be going in the opposite direction? Why is it that those schools are as they are now? Any response? Team?
The question. Yes, actually, I was trying to get the mic going. So could you repeat the question?
Yeah,
please?
I said we look at a number of schools in the West, Selassie and St. Anne's. Those are 2 schools, 2 secondary schools. They are clearly underused. St. Anne's had 1,700 students 10 years ago. I think they have maybe 200 or 300 now. Almost a dead school.
Okay, the question of sustainability of an institution comes into play. Quite clearly, the infrastructure or the system itself is not properly configured to attract the students that need to be there. It's not a matter of students don't want to be in schools. It's a matter of not having the appropriate resources, the appropriate teachers, etc. So I think we need to look at how do we make the institution attractive. I don't think the location of the school is the issue, because there are several 100,000 students living in that area. It is definitely a matter of the infrastructure and how it is configured. And the question of one school versus another, traditional versus the new schools and so on, comes into play as well. Parents want their students to go to the traditional schools. They want students to go into other areas and so on. So I think my other colleagues may have some comments on that. But I think the whole matter is to do with the infrastructure, where it is the quality of the leadership in those institutions, the kind of resources that are allocated to those institutions. There are several other factors, but I think these are some of the critical ones.
I
I
don't.
was just told that St. Anne's is doing well. They had to change the school type. It's now a cap school, and the students move on to, some students move on to Denham Town. And Selassie is doing much better under new principal. Yes, you will.
I saying I don't often disagree with Dr. Morris, but I was just wondering if location has something to do with it. I thought so. Yeah. Okay.
I stand corrected. That
All right, so let me open to the floor. Let us focus now on the issue of financial sustainability in education.
From the U.S. perspective, I would suggest that competition does wonders. And one option in the U.S. in the past couple of decades has been the creation of private charter schools that is paid for by government funding, just as you have in public schools. And where did charter schools come from? They came from disgruntled families, parents, who said, my school that my child goes to is not well educating or preparing my youngster for life after school. And so we're going to get together as a group of parents and create a private school. And we want you, government, to take the money that you were giving to the ineffective public school and give it to this private school, which we will act as the board, and we will determine outcomes and success rates. And since that time, charter schools throughout the U.S. have proliferated. There are charter schools now in every part of the United States. Some are based upon technology, some are based upon the arts, some utilize other focuses in terms of educating a child, but the essence is competition. Now, the literature then suggests, what did that then do to public schools? Because those that argued against it said, well, you're taking money away from public schools, and we're all going to crash. The opposite occurred, because public schools then had to become more competitive. They had to become better at what they did to compete with these parent-run charter schools. So I would suggest that competition and the demands of folks or families does wonders to elevate education, as well as educational leadership that's informed, that's creative and innovative in any given state. Lastly, Clark University took this at face value and said, we need to create a charter school outside of Clark University in the community, and created its own charter school. And part of the arrangement is poor children that go to that charter school that do well in the community are guaranteed admission into Clark University after they graduate. What an incentive. That has now forced public schools to look very differently at the quality of education that they're offering.
Thanks. Bill, let me hear. Yes?
Right. I just wanted to pick up on the point of equity. Looking at the types of schools that we're focusing on now is very instructive in terms of our general education. Because if we look at these schools, we probably would say they are the weakest in many ways because of how they are resourced and because of who doesn't go there. I taught at one of the 4 schools you mentioned a while ago.
Yeah.
And after teaching there, I taught at another school. I think everybody is hearing me, but... Oh, sorry, ask pardon. I taught at a school, one of those 4 schools, and I also taught at a high school located in very upper St. Andrew in Cherry Gardens. Both shall remain nameless. But the same academic ability was to be found in both schools. The difference with the second school was there was an issue of accountability by the school. And the school did everything to make sure that the child who had learning disabilities, holes in their learning because of wherever they were coming from, that they were given the chance to pass the CXCs and so on that they needed to. I think the will doesn't exist with equity at both types of schools. And I think that whatever initiative we are to take must treat each child anywhere in the same way that we would treat a child at the upper end. When we mention about the location of schools, I have to disagree to an extent, because I went to school in, St. Jago is in an inner city community, St. Catherine High, St. George's College, Kingston College. There are other things that happen which allow the school and the community to have a relationship. And leadership is one of the big issues there. Leadership. A school in Trenchtown has a no-brainer. I'm sorry, I don't mean to offend anyone, but there's a no-brainer. Music. Trenchtown, I watched The Voice and I heard a little Chinese fellow singing about Trenchtown. And he doesn't know, I'm sure, where Trenchtown, he had probably never been there. The world knows Trenchtown for music, but we don't go there ourselves because of how Dr. Mundell spoke about that music and the arts are treated. So I want, as we look at the issue of sustainability, to think about how we look at who we want our children to become. And if we don't believe that they can become that, then we won't put anything in place for them to get there.
I would like to support, it's on, to support the point made about the use of the funds, the tax. Also, there's another issue with the secondary subsector, in that a few years ago, many schools were upgraded, which for many of them, it was just basically one sign coming down and another sign going up to change the name of the school. And to this point, I don't know what study was done of the school. Should the school have been named a technical school and resourced accordingly, but all the schools are termed high schools or junior high. And I still think that work needs to be done of how we define a particular institution, wherever it is. Yes, they're saying through the GSAT system that they're putting students here and there and everywhere and trying to spread out. And we have all kind of models and formulas every year. But the institution of itself, in the same way that, for example, UTech, when it was upgraded, NCU was upgraded, they told teachers there that they have to step up one level. They now need more PhD. There are different needs for the requirement. The same treatment should be given to at the secondary level. And some of these schools are still having an identity crisis. They don't know where they are. They are getting students, and a profile needs to be taken of some of these areas to see, okay, this school is best defined as X school, and not looking down. And I take the point about it's not looking down. It's in terms of allocating resources. Do we put some labs in these schools? These schools are best suited for X type of laboratories or whatever. I think that work still needs to be done.
Just to expand on the point my dear friend is making about the school, I go back to the point that location of the school is important, but if a school is located in a particular area, it can succeed. I think there are certain things that we need to put in place to make it succeed, and if we don't do that, then it will always be floundering. One of these approaches, I think, would be to make the school a center of excellence for something. That's not difficult to do. I know this initiative was thought of some time ago in the technical vocational area, for example, if you make a school in Denham Town or Tivoli or wherever the center of excellence in X, you'll find that that school will be attracting the students who are in that area because they want to be that X. It's a matter of how you lead and how you position the institution. I think we're looking at symptoms as the driving mechanisms to determine how we view a school. And the symptoms of violence, the symptoms of inner city problems, and so on. Those are real, I understand that. But if we can position the school, make it attractive, and have the correct leadership, it can succeed.
We have two more questions, and then we have to.
Well, I was just basically commenting on the education tax comment that was made. I don't think that if the education tax is used to support our schools, I don't necessarily think that our schools will become any better. Because as the nice lady on the panel said, many of our schools have an identity crisis, and many of our schools lack management. And on the micro level, if you give two individuals $1, one individual will use that dollar better than the next individual. And I think that is a problem now with most of our schools, that some schools have better management capacity. And even Dr. David Jordan, he said with the private charter school, he said that these private citizens came together, created a management, and they said, give us the money and we will manage those resources. You cannot give extra money to a failing situation. It will be wasted. That's my opinion.
Okay. We have one last question.
Actually, it's not a question, it's a suggestion or comment. I'm Jamaican. I was schooled here, but I currently live in the United States. And so I am part of the diaspora and in education organizations. And what I have not heard, I came here specifically 2 days to attend this conference. And what I haven't heard is how can the diaspora help? We don't have all the answers, and there are several points that were made this afternoon that we would struggle to even attempt to support it. However, Jamaica is considered a borderless country. And it is a fact that there are far more Jamaicans outside of Jamaica than in Jamaica. And I can speak for the Northeast USA. We are dying to help. Okay? We just don't have our act together totally, that's why. But yes, we are. We are dying to help. And so I strongly suggest the organization that I'm representing is an umbrella organization of alumni associations. And that is a group that we can harness to come back here and help. Nevertheless, let me say, keep your eyes and ears open. There is an Advancement in Education 2030 Summit coming to Jamaica in February. We're coming to listen. We're coming to find out, what do you want us to do? There's going to be a summit in the West and a summit in the East. Okay? So think about it. That's all I ask.
Okay. Nice. Lady beside you. And
The name of the organization is the Union of Jamaican Alumni Associations, USA, Inc. And there are similar organizations in Toronto and Florida.
lady beside you.
Good afternoon. I've been listening for the past 2 days, and persons are talking about high schools, but I'm very passionate about the early childhood sector. We are under-resourced. We get little or no funding from the government, but we survive. Why? Accountability and management. I think the emphasis that is paid on the early childhood sector when it comes down to management, if that is paid to the high school level, things would be better.
When everybody's talk about under-resourced, I'd like to know what that is. Because when I used to go to basic school, I think they were worse off than you today, and they made the best of what they had. And if you're going to say you're under-resourced, I think you need to identify what are the resources that you want. And this might be the forum, because you have the diaspora now saying that they have resources, so you need to say that. I agree with you. Some schools must be shut down. That's a fact. You cannot have children living in a community where 365 days, out of that 365, they might have to stay home because of the gunshots that are being fired and the other trauma that are taking place. And therefore, once you identify that they cannot develop in this environment, if we're talking about real transformation of the education, you need to move them out. And I believe that more boarding school must be looked at, especially when it comes to everybody in here saying parents must take a critical role in the development of their child. And I've been saying it to the people here today, we must decide who are parents and who are child bearers. There are children from the day they go to basic school, primary school, and high school. Nobody know them parents till the picnic go to GSAT and don't get past the traditional high school. And it's not my fault, it's the 6th grade teacher who never did her job. And when that parents come, you say, whose mother or father are you? And you say, how come you never come to the school before? But in this day and age, where children in Trenchtown, and Miss Stanley can talk about that, and other people who now gone up to Cherry Garden can talk about it, they know that the attendance record will reflect that, especially sometimes when there are violence that breaks out in a particular section of the community, children can't cross boundary line. They are not allowed to cross boundary line. So we have to look at that critically, that we have to look at more boarding school where these children will be helped with structures, they'll be helped with discipline, and they'll be given the support needed. When you talk about people defending the Hazel Lassie, the Trenchtown, you must, all of you should go. It's not the best paid teachers go there, you know. It's not the best, it's not the, also it's not the most qualified teachers who go there. All right. All right. And this is why probably you need to go now and have another forum and ask the students who come to those schools what you think about the people who are teaching you. Because then you will find out that those children do not feel validated by the people who come to these schools. So, all right, we now have to prove what is not true. Lamita, Logan, everybody can get. There are exceptions to the rule. And Lamita's presentation yesterday spoke to that. Lamita was the one who went up there and tell everybody yesterday that she was one of those children who had to sit at the back because she didn't see the commitment in a lot of our teachers. I'm not beating teachers because, listen, we would not have been where we are, any of us in here, without teachers. But let us face the fact, there are some people who have gone into this noble profession for the paycheck and not for the love of the profession. And we have to look at the quality of the teachers that we are putting out. Because here are teachers. Unfortunately, you are not the parents of these children, but you might be the only person that will make that difference in that child's life. And you have to take that role serious.
I am very grateful to be here in this symposium today, and I am an international development student at the Clark University. And today I want to reflect on the location of the university, and if I have to tell, yeah, Clark is in the US, but probably Dr. Jordan can explain you more. Clark University is located in one of the most deprived part of Massachusetts, in spite of being in New England. It is the second largest city in New England. And prostitution and drugs, narcotics happens right outside the dorm we live in, right outside. And because Clark is located in that community, Clark has, I think, it has been easier for us to be a part of that community more. Clark has helped us. It has made curriculum that is more needed to support the community. Like, I would say curriculum like monitoring and evaluation, community development and planning, and social entrepreneurship that Dr. Jordan teaches us helps us find the alternative solution to have sustainable development, as well as not just for this generation and to pass it on to generation next. And Clark has helped us connect and make us believe that we matter. I think Dr. Smith mentioned about why student matters should be a part of what institution teaches, and Clark has made us believe that, and it has helped us challenge the mainstream business or education or whatever problem that we have. It has made us believe that there is a solution out there, and we are a part of it to find the solution. Thank you.
I want to, this morning, I don't remember who did the presentation, but they said a leader is somebody.
No, continue. Continue.
You're hearing me? A leader is somebody with a vision. And I want to agree with my colleague over there. I think the school does as well as its manager. And I want to just cite Margaret Bolt, who was then principal at St. Peter Claver. I don't know how many of you remember, but with the Change from Within program, that school, which is in the middle of an inner city community, it became a prep school. It became, I don't know how many of you remember, that school was in the middle of the community. And I don't believe that the school cannot do well in the middle of the inner city community. Because one thing I have learned is that when we get the community to respect the school, community members to respect the school does very, very well. Thank you.
I just, top of the afternoon, colleagues. Yes. I am just a little bit challenged there because I can understand the passion of my colleagues in a session like this that, you know, we call for lockdowns and so on. But I'm just imploring my colleagues that at this point, before we come to lockdown, that we think about the children who we want to lock down on. Because then you would have to close Miss Stanley's school, who is doing so well in the garrison there. And what would all those students do without those empathy and without those persons who are warm to them? They would just have the gunshots and no school. I want you to think of 1,450 children from Tivoli Gardens High School, who if you close it down, then those students would be without not only school, but lunch, but persons who are surrogate mother. And then St. Andrew Technical along the strip, who has almost 2,000 children. And these children come to school every day. So we are closing down on them. And then I come to Denham Town High School, that if school is closed, the children say, why is it closed today? Because they want their lunch. They give me the opportunity to serve them, to hug and love them, to teach them that there's another way apart from violence, to provide their uniforms, to give them lunch, to help them with their SBAs so that some can go to university. But not all children can pass CXCs, but they can be logical, reasonable, analytical, and all of those things, and they can be the best master TVET that you have. So colleagues, I just want you to think on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let us thank our panelists. And it seems that we need another half an hour to really get into the discussion. But we have to curtail it. We have to stop at this point. So thanks again. And I'm sure this is not the last of the symposium.
Two very interesting days, and we are almost, sadly, at the end. All right, some goodies now. The book merchant, Miss Barrett, will be coming to do the raffle. She's going to do the draw now. Miss Barrett, please come for us quickly. Following that, Dr. Mundo will come and finish up for us.
Okay, good Afternoon. Thank you all for participating, those who participated. Sorry, I got a last minute entry, so I'm trying to make this fair. And I keep hearing everybody telling me I must make sure I draw their name. So, all right, here we go. Paulette Johnson Taylor. Yes, you win. Come. It's not the lotto. Oh boy, I like the fact that she's so excited she can't recover. It's bless your heart. It's not the Oscars. Is you the saying never win it? Oh, today's your lucky day. All right, here you go. Thank you for participating.
Congratulations and thank you, Miss Barrett. Dr. Mundell will be coming now to close our 2 days for us. Just another 15 minutes or so. So just hang around for the next 15 minutes while we thank our presenters and all the wonderful persons who came here to contribute to this function.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're almost done. We're going to make this quick. If you're here yesterday, we want to thank our Dean, Dean Wilmot, for his greetings, and our Director, Professor Griffith, for his insightful remarks yesterday. Then we had the privilege of hearing from Professor Annette Henry, and it was such a moving keynote address. If you agree, we can. She's here, and she presented a wonderful model of a success story in another part of the world. I'm going to invite Miss Charmaine Delissa to come forward, and also Professor Henry.
Well, on behalf of Operation Save Jamaica and the University of the West Indies, we just want to say how much we appreciate the wisdom and the insights you shared with us yesterday. And I know that it will have an outstanding impact and a continued impact on us here in Jamaica. So thank you so much for coming all the way to be with us. And thank you again for all that you've shared. We appreciate it very much.
And then we went into our presentations. Mr. Horace Levy, for his insightful presentation in the morning. Do we have presentations for them, Dr. Cook? Oh, they're not here. All right. So, Miss Lamita Lug, is she here? She is? Okay. Could you come forward, please? Dr. Cook, you're going to help me here. And that will be followed by Mrs. Carballo. Dr. Crawford Brown and Dr. Herbert Gale also gave inspiring presentations yesterday. They are not here now, though. But Mrs. Penny Carballo, is she here? And Dr. David Jordan, could you stand by? Dr. Jordan. Mrs. Vivian Da Costa. Oh, she left? There's someone to represent her? Okay. Oh, let me tell you, get to come up here again. Oh, the standing gift. I'll take that. All right. Mrs. Chevans, she had to leave, but we thank her. We really thank her for her presentation on change from within. Dr. Morris, Dr. Halden Morris. We just heard from him. Could you come forward, please? TVET, opening our eyes to the value of TVET. Professor McClory. Thank you, Professor McClory, and she's one of our visiting scholars, one of our colleagues. In the School of Education. Dr. Jennifer Winter Palmer. Pardon? Oh, sorry. Okay, I'm thanking. Dr. Cook is instructing me here. Sorry.
We just want to say thanks to the panelists, and Dr. Mondo will just list the names. Thank you.
All right, and also Dr. Jung for the insightful and inspiring panel discussion that they led just now. Could you give them a hand again, please? Then we want to thank Mr. McCook and the OGM team for designing and making the program look as lovely as it is. Give a hand to the team for the program. And also for helping us with public relation aspect of this symposium. To MITS and the team for videotaping, and it's really good that they were able to be here, especially in the face of graduation happening where their services were needed around the campus. Thanks also to Mr. Dixon, Craig, our homeboy from come forward, Craig. Our resident technician from the School of Education. Shamin, again, please. And Mr. Dixon is the most patient of persons. He's just sat there and did his job for the entire 2 days. Also to Mr. Spence for transportation, I don't think he's here. Miss Rear Alert, thanks to her. Miss D. Graham, both from Operation Save Jamaica. And also from our School of Education, special thanks to Miss Sonia Roberts, who took the day off from our school to be over here with us for 2 days. Miss Alison Montgomery, Miss Dion Bailey, Miss Althea Atkins. Thank you so much for helping with the organization of the logistics. These were the lovely ladies that you met on the outside when you came in, and they were very efficient. Could we get Miss Roberts up here? And I take instruction from Dr. Cook as she tells me what to do. Miss Felicia Morgan, special thanks to you again for joining from the US to be with us. The other members of the administrative team from our school, special thanks to you. To our sponsors, Petrojam, the Bank of Nova Scotia, Jamaica National Building Society, Book Merchant, and thanks especially to the Mona Visitors Lodge for accommodating us in such a comfortable environment. And for the lovely meals, we might say so, right? It was really special to be here. I'm not sure if we're leaving out anybody, but Dr. Hutton for chairing the session just now. Give him a hand too, please. Thanks, Dr. Hutton. And it's not on the paper that I was given, but let me thank Miss Lorna Stanley for her, and she was acknowledged yesterday. And the organizers, they didn't put their names on the papers, but we want a big applause for the goodly Reverend. Reverend Bruce? Where is he? All right, Reverend Fletcher, Pastor Fletcher. Thank you so much for coming up with this idea and for seeing it to fruition. And of course, Dr. Lorraine Cook. A big round of applause for her. As you can see, she's quite an organizer. Sometimes a little, I was going to say slave driver, but I won't say it. But she certainly has a way of getting things done and getting me to do whatever she wanted. And like doing the vote of thanks that I didn't really want to do. Thanks. If we never mention anybody, we want to still thank you, especially to now the audience. I'm getting to the audience for making this experience so special. The insightful thoughts and insightful ideas that you presented, all really relevant. And the symposium, to my mind, has been a success, especially because of your involvement. And we look forward to you being here at the next such event. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, before you leave, we want to really thank Carimed for the baskets and gorgeous flowers. Those are contributions, and we really want to thank them. Also, we want to ask you, we'll be sending out emails requesting your feedback regarding the symposium. Please respond. It will go a far way. Okay, so it was lovely having you all. It was a lovely 2 days, and we really thank God for being with us. And have a great weekend. Thank you.